Welcome back to the Bitfinex live stream. I'm your host, Ricardo Martinez, and we're broadcasting live from the Plan B Forum in El Salvador. Right now, I have the pleasure to be joined with Bjorn from Penguin Academy. Bjorn, how are you?
Hey, nice to meet you. Hi there.
Doing great, man. Why don't you tell people what Penguin does?
Sure. So Penguin is on the one hand side a Bitcoin mining company. We're hosting a lot of large Bitcoin miners. We're having all our operations in Paraguay, and we also run Penguin Academy, where we're training people programming. We're really using programming as a school of thought there. So overall, our mission is to transform energy into human potential.
How did you, first of all, get involved with Bitcoin mining?
So it's quite late, actually. I think the first time I really heard about it was 2012, 2013. And I thought it's weird. I didn't know what money was.
Were there ASICs at that time, or no?
No, not with mining, right?
Yeah.
I went to university, and my buddy at Freshman's Week was trading Bitcoin, and I remember that he was very happy when it was like $1 or something like that. And he was like, "Oh, it's $1." It was big, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Right? And then I think I lived in Hong Kong for a while. 2015, I was in a Starbucks, and suddenly the Starbucks got crowded. And I was like, what the heck are you guys doing here? Oh, we're talking about Bitcoin and how to pass better through the Great Firewall and stuff like this. And I'm a coder. I'm a self-taught coder.
Yeah.
So I was like, interesting, okay. But really didn't pay a lot of attention to it, right? And for a long time, I tried to understand money, totally independent of Bitcoin. Not knowing what Bitcoin is, I thought it's a scam.
Okay.
And I, as a software developer, I built some smart contracts. I was super excited about smart contracts and blockchain and stuff like that. So I did it for customers. So I was familiar with that, right? But not as a financial investment or as money, as sound money. I didn't have any idea of this stuff. So I was really interested to understand money. So I was going around asking a lot of people living in Switzerland. You're close to the banks in Zurich, a lot of C-levels from Swiss banks, and asked them, can you explain me how money works? If money is printed and you need to give it back, and you need to pay some interest when you give it back, where does the money come from to pay that interest? And I didn't get that, right?
Yeah.
I was like, well, how does this all work? And it was funny because most of the time people were like, I don't know, can't really tell you that. I guess you need to ask someone from the SNB, the Swiss National Bank, right?
Yeah.
Eventually I also was teaching some statistics classes and had some students from the SNB, and also asked them, and they were like, well, not sure how this works. And so I really never really understood money, and it was until 2021 that I was in Paraguay, built a school there, and learned a lot about the energy situation. So Paraguay, probably by now everyone knows, has a lot of excess energy, exporting it for 50 years to Brazil. And I was working during COVID Penguin was working during COVID for the Ministry of Health.
Okay.
We built the electronic medical record of Paraguay, and this was financed by Itaipu, by the hydroelectric plant. And part of this contract really was to teach them programming, like modern application development. And so I spent a lot of time with the engineers, and they started to tell me about Itaipu, the amount of energy. So for 50 years it exists, and since its inception, 80 to 90% of Paraguayan electricity has been sent to Brazil at cost. And obviously you don't grow an economy if you send all your energy to the neighboring country. And so that was the moment I was like, okay, how could we use this energy? And that was eventually what led me to Bitcoin.
That's a wild story.
It was fun.
For people who aren't familiar with Paraguay like myself, why does Paraguay have so much excess energy?
Well, Paraguay really has one big generator that is producing all its energy.
Okay.
It has two smaller ones that are also there, but it's really like, the crazy thing about it is that the biggest energy generator in the world is standing in Paraguay.
Really?
And no one even knows it, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So when you think about the biggest energy generator in the world, you're probably going to think about the Three Gorges Dam in China, right?
Yeah.
So that has 21 gigawatts installed capacity. Mm-hmm. And nominal, Paraguay has 14. that is actually 50-50 shared between Paraguay and Brazil. So you could say it's less. But then you look into the production of how much energy is coming out of these generators every year. In most years, Itaipu produces more than the Three Gorges Dam because
Wow.
there's water all year round. There's incredible amounts of water, and that's why it actually produces more.
Okay.
And it was built 50 years ago during the dictatorship. It was a deal between the two countries because there was a dispute over this land where it was built. Brazil was very interested in it because it was known that it has a lot of potential for hydro energy and wanted to have it. And Paraguay said, no, it's ours.
Yeah.
And so eventually the US came actually in to mediate and cut a deal where they would both own, construct together and then operate together this hydroelectric plant.
Okay.
And in that time, very funny, it was normal that a small country and a big country would also have proportionally ownership of this hydroelectric plant. So Paraguay should have really owned 10% or 5% of this, and Brazil 90%, right?
Yeah.
But the US said, no, we do it 50-50.
Yeah.
And so that is what gave Paraguay this present of incredible amounts of energy that until today they cannot fully use.
And how many Bitcoin mining operations are currently working in Paraguay? Because I know there's you guys, and then we've talked about a couple other companies that are there as well. It seems like it's a hotspot for mining. How many companies are operating there?
There are quite a few. It's definitely, I would say, the major place for Bitcoin mining in Latin America, probably in all of LATAM.
Yeah.
Today, I think the official number is around 500-600 megawatts.
Okay.
So to give you an idea, the country on an average day might use just about short of 2 gigawatts, 2,000 megawatts.
Okay.
So this is like a third of the energy, right?
Wow.
That the whole country consumes. And so aside of us, I think there are a few very famous players there. Bitfarms, Hive is coming, and those are the two big ones. There's another Chinese project that is quite big. And then there's a bunch of smaller ones. There's actually quite a few smaller ones that are dispersed all over the place. And then there also in the past was a lot of illegal Bitcoin miners. So they just, like in the Wild West, would throw a cable on the electricity line and to tap in, which is obviously not a great thing to do because in the end the whole country suffers. And this was quite extensive. Some estimations said it's more than 100 megawatts of energy being stolen.
Wow.
And so a few months ago, the government made it criminal to steal energy. So you now go to prison for 10 years.
Okay.
And so some people told us that you could see the energy demand drop
Yeah.
the moment that law came into effect. And it's assumed that a lot of these players went abroad. But yeah, so that's the landscape.
And how early did you start operating a Bitcoin mine there?
Say again?
How early did you start operating a Bitcoin mine in Paraguay?
Oh, we started small actually. We started 2021, right? It was really, it was really random in a way because again, I read this article in The Guardian. Should Paraguay use its energy wealth to mine Bitcoin or to fight poverty? And I was like, why is it an or, right? Why not an and?
Yeah.
And it happened to be in that moment that I was looking for a way to use the energy. So I was really looking into hydrogen, figured out that hydrogen is not such a great thing, and then looked for other ways. And I'm a tech person, so I was like, okay, what about data centers?
Yeah.
And I didn't really consider Bitcoin in that moment, but when this article came out, and I also started to understand more about decentralization and how networking works, and it all came together, and I was like, I should give it a try.
Yeah.
So that was December 2020, and eventually I was like, okay, let's try it out. We reached out to some investors in Germany, in Switzerland, and we said, hey guys, are you interested to invest in Paraguay for to build some Bitcoin mining site? And they were like, are you crazy? Like, where? What do you guys know about that? And eventually we did it. My wife's Tio, uncle, which is not exactly uncle in South America. It's really like whatever you're far related to. Owns a distribution company. So I was like, okay, talking to him, and that way we made it possible to do a 6 megawatt project. And it was really in the beginning just me and two friends of mine, co-founders, so to say. And we were digging holes. We were putting concrete bases in, buying containers from China during COVID.
Yeah.
So eventually, we made it all happen. It was quite wild. We had the funniest part was when the ship with a lot of containers got stuck in the Panama Canal for having COVID.
Oh, okay.
So when a ship
So they
has
like
COVID,
wouldn't let them through customs or
they
whatever?
didn't let them go through the Panama Canal, and it was there for like 3 weeks. And we're like, what is it doing? Oh, it got COVID. So it was wild times, but nevertheless we managed to build it in 4 or 5 months. It was quite fast. And
Nice.
we've done it all ourselves, and so it was the first time I did anything physical as well, right? As a programmer, you really don't want to touch hardware ever, because hardware is the place that never works. It always breaks, and it's like, not my domain. I'm happy if I'm doing the code, and then that I know it works. And so it was also the first time that I touched hardware, and it was quite an experience.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What is the attitude of the government towards Bitcoin? I mean, obviously they have all these Bitcoin miners there, but like, do people in Paraguay even are they conscious of Bitcoin, or is it just kind of like a weird thing that's on the peripheral of society?
I would say we're definitely a little bit behind compared to El Salvador.
Okay.
We haven't declared it legal tender yet.
Okay.
Yet to come. No, it's a complicated topic. It's very misunderstood, I think. Many people are simply not knowing a lot about it, right? And Paraguay is very disconnected from the world, which is a beautiful thing. You got traditional values, families are strong, and it's a beautiful place to be. The living quality is incredibly high, in my opinion. I enjoy it a lot. I cherish it. And it's more tranquilo, right? You don't have all of the stress of the war in Europe and all of the things that happen in the US and all of this. It's far away of that and healthy in this way.
Yeah.
But of course it's also not up to the speed when it comes to technological adoption and innovation. And it also doesn't have this situation of, for example, Argentina, where you have like crazy inflation and people automatically understand the value of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
It's also not a thing. It's a pretty stable currency, and the central bank and the economists have done a very good job keeping the currency as stable as it's possible in the system, right? So there's not an imminent need for it, and I think out of this there's not necessarily a lot of interest and understanding. But I think it is coming slowly. I think Paraguay also has a pathway that it is on the way to go there. I think everyone has their own path to Bitcoin, and so also does a country have their own path to Bitcoin. And in Paraguay, it might very well be the excess energy, right? So now you can imagine that it's a very important factor for Paraguay, the Bitcoin mining that is happening there. I think now also with a changing tone in the whole world right now, right, through this new administration, the US and so on, I think it is also changing a little bit its perspective and gets more curious about all of these things that are happening already in the country. So I'm very positive about the next years, but I think it's still quite a bit of work that has to be done.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation. The mining industry, like, how do they view the mining industry? Do they view it as like a net positive for the country, that like there's all this investment coming in and all that, or do they view it as like with skepticism?
So I think there are different organizations or institutions having different views on it, right?
Okay.
On the one hand side, there is ANDE, which is the monopolist utility company of Paraguay. And has a very large amount of employees. It's a very big operation, and it has not been very profitable. It has been loss-making for many years and had an issue with that. The reason of that being is that energy has a very decent price for industries and for the people, and they're sometimes losing quite a little bit of the energy. So for them it was very good and survival, kind of part of their survival, to now have this new income stream.
Yeah.
On the other hand side, I think there is the leadership of the country that is very interested to use this energy they have, but is maybe more looking towards big tech, right? The Google, like we are just having a Google office next to us, right?
Yeah.
And it was big news when Google came to El Salvador.
It was.
And I think just like that, every country is trying to attract these brands that signal advancement for the country, that signal that it's ready for investors and more projects to come in. And Bitcoin today doesn't do that necessarily for a country. So I think that is where the leadership is looking towards today. But then I think there's also a kind of disconnect between this vision of making Paraguay a tech hub and attracting these companies and the reality today, right?
Yeah.
To give you an idea, we are training a lot of tech talent, and we're able to place all the people that we're training because there is a significant need for this new talent that knows how to navigate AI, that knows how to navigate software and technology. And that is not an industry today that is very established, right? So for a tech company to come, you first need to create the stepping stone, so to say. You first need to create environment.
Yeah.
And so through the academy, that's one way how we do it. And the other way, of course, is also the infrastructure. You need to have world-class infrastructure to attract world-class companies. And in Bitcoin mining, the beauty is that we don't need 100% of the time electricity,
Yeah.
right? We can modulate. The investment is significantly less than an AI data center. The complexity is a little less as well. So we go from 0 to 1, right? And then you can go from 1 to 100.
Yeah.
But I think this step from 0 to 1, this is where we are today as Paraguay, and I hope that the leadership will also see that and will embrace that more, and that we can work together in order to then go forward and make Paraguay the tech hub that it wants to be.
Yeah. I think that there's like a parallel with El Salvador in that sense. Like El Salvador right now with like all the Bitcoin companies, like there's a bunch of educational projects here to try to like teach people to become Lightning developers or like coders that can, you know, work for these Bitcoin companies that are here. And the way you describe Paraguay, it sounds like it's very, very similar with that like same need for like highly trained, like technical people.
Yeah, it's a transition in the whole world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I even want to argue that you see it also in the US and in Germany, where I'm from, right? Like, you can see that there is a need for a different type of people that have a different type of mindset. And traditionally, the school system works the same in most places in the world, for sure in all the Western world. And it really comes right from the, you could say, Prussian education system that was all focused around industrialization and making it possible, which was very important back then.
Yeah.
But today we don't really need to press people into this structure of a factory, because we will never outcompete a robot. A robot is a better robot, and a human is a better human. So I think this idea that what schools have been built for is breaking and it's not functioning anymore, right? And I think what the qualities we are now looking for in humans is leadership, is kind of challenging the status quo and having some kind of creativity and a will to create and to decide what has to be created and which pathway to go.
Yeah.
Because the knowledge itself doesn't cut the cake anymore, right? And so this new mindset, this is something that I think all countries are in need for, that is not enough, and some haven't realized. And I think the more established the country is, the more there's kind of like a golden cage, and there is idea that you're just good, the education system, your economy works. But then you look in these countries where there is not a functioning economy, or there is hardship and there are issues, and they're much more open to embrace this change.
Yeah.
And so that's actually why I came to Paraguay, because I was like, before designing curriculums in Switzerland, and there is no imminent need for change. People have jobs, they're doing fine, they're earning incredible amounts of money in every possible way, right? And even though maybe in the future they're not ready for it, right? They're not the kind of talent that companies are looking for. Well, there is some, right, of course, but a lot of it is also not. Nevertheless, they don't have this need of change. And so in countries like El Salvador that are already awake to it, to the future that is coming, and are already working towards this, this is where you will see the first change. And I think Paraguay is also poised to embrace this change. It will benefit a lot if it positions itself correctly. And that's our big dream, that we can convince the authorities and that we can convince all the people there by showing them what the future is looking like and making them part of it, right?
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful dream, a beautiful vision. Bjorn, is there anything else that you want to say, like as closing words?
If you guys listen to that on your computer, it might mean that you have not been here in El Salvador, and I think we can agree that you have been missing out.
Yeah, for sure.
So I am very impressed with what I'm seeing here.
Is this your first time here?
No, I'm here the third time.
Third time, okay.
Yeah, I was here 2 years ago for the first time for 2 weeks. Last year I was here for 2 weeks, and now it's my third time.
Okay, amazing.
And what's very interesting is that this time feels very different. I meet a lot of people that are here for the first time, a lot of bankers, a lot of traditional folks, regulators from traditional securities, and that are coming here and that are like looking what's going on. And so I think I can feel that there is some kind of momentum starting, and people that I've never would have thought would come here, right? At least not now, are here, are looking at it, and are very impressed, I think. And so it's definitely the place to be, at least the place to visit and get inspired and make sure to connect with this emerging hub.
Yeah, I agree completely. I've had a great time here. There's been Bitcoiners from all over the world, and I've had some very, very interesting conversations. Yeah. But thank you so much for doing the interview and coming on the show, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed.
And well, following with the academy, I think you had Delia on the show a while ago.
Yeah, I did.
And
I live streamed with her from adopting Bitcoin.
A year ago?
Yeah.
From here?
Well, from adopting Bitcoin, not Plan B, but yeah.
Sorry, from El Salvador.
Yeah, from El Salvador, yeah.
So I definitely, there's a lot of exciting news in the academy as well. I'm going to leave that to her.
Yeah.
Delia,
if you're watching, you got to come back and tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Incredible work she's been doing. Shout out to Delia for getting tons of students through an incredible program. We've placed so many kids in jobs now that like 3x their salary, going from the lowest third of earners to the top 10% of earners in like 8 months.
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna happen much more this year. And I'm gonna let Delia come on the show and talk about that, because it's definitely exciting.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All
cool.
Right, well, thank you.
Thank you again.
Indeed, and thanks for the hat.